Hi, everyone. Welcome to the stream today. It's Miriam Dorsett, and today I'm with Michael Burtov to talk about lean stack and how to put together one of those canvases. So if you're tuning in, comment any questions that you have below. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good. Just working along.
Yeah, startup life is the anxious life. So happy to see. I'd love to see what you got. Looking forward to it very much.
Yeah, let's go. Let's dive into it. If anyone is watching, I see somebody's tuned in. You can ask your questions about the lean stack here. What exactly do you want to explain what this tool is and what people can use it for?
Sure. Yeah. So the Lean Stack, the tool specifically that we're going to be working on today is called the Lean Canvas. It lets a company explore its options as far as go-to-market strategy, identifying target customers, developing products, developing like a revenue and monetization strategy. So generally a commercialization tool that has some really key insights into developing. It's specifically designed for software, like high-tech innovation economy software companies. But it works across the board. I've used this tool literally hundreds of times, I think by now. With in the classes that I teach and the startups that I mentor, everybody from service-based startups to technology startups, biotech, everybody finds this tool is really useful. It's like a super lean version of a business plan, but it really makes you think. It makes you really think about your business and specifically about your customers, which is really key to a successful launch.
Mm-hmm. Well, we started mine a while ago, and I kind of struggled with it while we were doing it live. And then, I just kept at it and kept working on my idea, and then reached back out to you because I felt like it was way better and had come a long way. So today, should we be putting together another one? What do you want to do with this?
Well, let's start from scratch, right? It's been a little while since we talked. Businesses tend to evolve, they're living things, they change over time. So tell me the latest iteration of what you're working on and the latest words that you would use to express it. And let's go for the lean canvas that you already have. Even if it's rough, even if it's empty, let's go through it and explore some of the things that you've put in there. And we'll have a nice, robust discussion about the specific items.
Perfect. So QUOKA is the anonymous message text. QUOKA is anonymous text messaging for founders and entrepreneur mental health.
Okay, you want to elaborate a little bit?
Yes. The goal is to increase founder mental health and provide them a safe space for getting answers, learning, supporting each other, giving and getting. And it's all done through text message, so there's no app that they need to download. And it's anonymous, so they never risk being judged or feeling stupid for asking a specific question. And also, if they're really busy, there's something going on, they can go away for a while. They don't have to engage in the community discussion, and they don't feel like guilty, like they're not participating or giving enough.
Okay. Sounds like a really important thing. Being a serial startup founder myself, I know that it's an extremely difficult thing psychologically. So let's dive in. Let's dive in and see if we can bring it to market.
Okay, let's pull this thing up. My computer is giving me a little bit of an issue here. I might ask you to share your screen instead because mine
You have to
is
give me
not.
access to your, or actually, I'll pull it up. If you're using the one on my account, I can pull it up.
I am. Let's see here. Mm-hmm. Okay. here. All right. Yeah, this is not good. We're having a little bit of a tech problem here because my computer is not letting me pull up the share screen option. So I don't know how I'm going to pull this up to do this. Let me see. It's always fun. Well, okay, while I'm trying to figure this out, why don't we talk a little bit about the Evergreen Startup? This is a book that you wrote, and it's a very candid story that you've written here and also useful information. But you talk about how you wanted to get this book out before you reached like the next level of success, so that you wrote it during a time when you felt like you could relate to the founder journey. How are things going with this? And why should someone pick up a copy of the Evergreen Startup?
No, thanks. Any chance I get to plug my book is a good chance. No, you're right. One of the it's actually I updated the cover recently, so it has a cool new cover. If anybody's looking for it on Amazon or something, it looks a bit different now. But I updated a little bit for the times, I think. But I wrote the book. I published the book about a year ago. A little bit more than that now, but it's a very fresh book. And you're right. One of the reasons that I wrote it is to be in the headspace of a founder, an actual early stage founder, which I had been for about 15 years. So I'd been very experienced in that space. I founded 4 companies. I brought several companies from nothing to millions in revenue and millions in venture funding. Won a whole bunch of awards along the way. But most importantly, I teach and mentor early stage companies, and I've been doing that for over 10 years with various organizations. So I was very excited to kind of combine the notes that I had, the lectures that I would teach with, and some of the experiences that I saw firsthand. So that book is filled with stories from my own startup journey, but specifically from the people I've mentored and worked with. And I've worked with hundreds of startups at this point. I've been very involved with helping out companies, early emerging companies, for a long time now. And it's a very practical look at real life lessons learned when raising money specifically, but also when growing companies, building teams, things like that. As far as I know, it's really the only book written by a non-investor. I actually pride myself on not investing into startups. Because in essence, and I go into this a little bit in the book, is an investor has an inherent conflict of interest with wanting what's best for the startup. Well, and that's an unfortunate thing, and it doesn't work with all models of investing, but a lot of models of investing, once you are investing in the company, you're not necessarily interested in the same thing as the company founders are. Protecting your investment and growing your investment oftentimes doesn't mean the same thing for you and the company's founder. So to avoid those conflicts, that's when I wrote the book, because I felt I was right on the urge of starting to be an investor and taking more active roles in early stage companies. And having played in that space, having worked with venture capital funds and angel groups and things like that, not as an investor, but on the periphery, doing diligence, sourcing deals, things like that, I could kind of see myself becoming more in the headspace of being a service provider to a startup, as a capitalist, a venture capitalist would be, rather than a startup founder. So that was the reason that I wrote the book when I did and published it when I did, when everything was intellectually honest and I wasn't trying to sell my services as an investor. They are, after all, service providers. And like I said, it's really the only book out there that I'm aware of that's written by a practicing entrepreneur about how to raise money. An entrepreneur that has not conflicted his interests against those of startups. So happy to have come out with that book. I think it's been received pretty well. Definitely has the investor community has been a little bit polarizing. I speak on this topic quite a bit about the conflicts between venture capitalists and angels and things like that in companies. And it's a unique challenge. But anyway, if you're a founder and you want to raise money and you want the straight up dope, so to speak, about what it's like, where to go, what conflicts to avoid, how to go about it the right way, and how to align your interests with those of your investor, check out this book. It's probably the best book on this topic. And as far as, like I said, as far as I know, it's the only book that's not written by an investor. So I'm not trying to sell the investor's point of view, which pretty much all the literature in the space is. Everything is written by investors, and all they're trying to do is say, look at us, we're important, you should get our money. Whereas that's not what I'm into. So anyway, check it out. And Miriam, thank you for bringing it up. I can wax on poetics for hours and hours until everybody falls asleep talking about my book. But I thought I'd give it a very, very quick, although low energy introduction here. And I appreciate you giving me the chance to do that.
Yeah. Have any investors gotten upset with you about it and said something to you?
They have. So one of the main reasons for that is that I actually talk about the largest alternative model of fundraising, which is called equity crowdfunding. Which is a congressional reform. So without going too much into the legacy of things, Congress decided to reform the venture capital model effectively. They basically said venture capitalists are not that good. There's some problems, a lot of different problems. So we're gonna reform it. So the U.S. Congress, in a bipartisan way, very rare for the government, introduced a series of reforms, and they're known as equity crowdfunding. And that basically allows you to raise money from the crowd, investment money. So you can raise millions of dollars. The type I talk about is called Regulation CF. You can raise up to $5 million a year from regular people as investors rather than angels or venture capitalists. And one of the reasons that venture capitalists, VCs, and the big angel groups don't like this model is that it's a directly competitive model to them. Because now it's the public. It's democratizing fundraising, whereas before it was controlled by a very small group of elites. So those guys do take issue with pretty much anybody who talks about it, but specifically with people who praise it as much as I do. I've personally raised millions through crowdfunding for my own companies that I run. I've helped others raise millions as well. So it's a very viable ways to raise money, but it's a directly competitive way to raise money. So yes, I have gotten some flack for that. Nothing I say is, particularly rude or, dishonest or libelous, but I am introducing a disruptive system and is disrupting the status quo quite a bit. To this day, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars have been raised through equity crowdfunding. And that's kind of something that a lot of the more established guys don't want you to know about. And yes, there's definitely been a lot of flack I got for that.
Well, we've got some people that have tuned in. I've got my computer working. So
nice.
If you're live with us, go to leanstack.com if you haven't already, and pull up your lean canvas. We are going to create one together right now for QUOKA, and you can create yours while we're doing it. So use this time wisely. I know I wanted to kind of do this in an interactive way because I know founders are always busy. You attend these workshops, they talk, and then it's like, well, I didn't get any work done in the last hour. So we're going to get some work done in this hour and invite you to join us. And Mike's here to answer any questions you have while we're putting these together because it can be a little bit of a science. All right. Talk me through it.
So cool. Let's dive in. Hey, talk is cheap. Let's see what you got. Let's see. So the lean canvas, open it up. I'll give a real quick intro to everybody who's watching about the different categories. So in the tool, there are videos you can watch and things like that, and I recommend you do that. They're very specific to software, but let me go in and talk a little bit about the tool in general, and then we'll go and start filling out the categories. And basically, you fill them out in order. You fill out different boxes, and they let you think like your customer. They let you think very strategically about very critical aspects of your go-to-market strategy. So let's dive in. Oh, you see, you got a lot of stuff already. That's great.
Well, this was my original one, TOK, which was like an acronym for Texts of Kindness. You can see how far the product has come. We're not just scaling synchronicity or trying to exchange texts of kindness now. But you see, there was a lot of things that I really had it filled in there. And now I've got QUOKA and it's looking good.
Let's do that one. I actually don't have access to the QUOKA one.
I can definitely share it with you, I'm sure.
No, I see your screen. That's good. Let's go over it. That's awesome.
Okay, cool.
So let's summarize, if you don't mind, one more time before we dive into the details. It's a texting app for founders to focus on their mental health and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair overview?
Yep, that's a good overview. Yep.
All right, so let's dive in. So tell me about the problem that you're solving.
So the problem is that founders are some of the brightest minds in our world, working on really tough problems, trying to solve and tackle things that will create a better world for us all. And they're under so much pressure. We live in a public world. They are leaders in their community. They're leaders in their organization. And it's not really done to be open as a founder or as even regular people, but we're focusing on founders to talk about, your mental health and how things are truly going openly. It is done in some cases, but if you do, there's fear there that you'll, be judged or be, someone will think, you're not mentally fit to run an organization or do this, 10-year hustle that it takes to grow this. So that is the main problem. We need founders to have a place where they can get access to information. They can ask questions without feeling stupid or judged. They need to be able to grow and learn to take their startups to the next level and solve these problems. And when a founder's not mentally healthy and well, they're not creating the best that they can. So QUOKA is that place.
So you want to have an environment where there is no consequence for being honest. Is that fair? Because you don't want to tell a prospective investor, "Hey, I'm stressed out. This job sucks. I'm just broke and I hate everything I'm doing. I'm just powering through it day to day and I'm depressed." You don't want to tell that to an investor or a potential partner or an employee.
Definitely not. No.
Okay. So would this be a community of founders?
Yes.
Founders in related industries or founders that don't conflict with each other? Because you don't want two startups that have the same business that might be competing with each other. Or would
they can. When they come in, they set preferences, and that segments them into different groups based on how many times they've been a founder, like failures or successes, and the industry that they're in. So that way messages can be tailored to them. If there's valuable information that comes in that's related to SaaS, for example, then we want to route that to SaaS founders. If it's about marketplaces, we want the marketplace founders to have access to that learning.
Okay, so you do want people to share knowledge as well. So this isn't just about mental health. You want people in the SaaS space to share resources and knowledge and experiences as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like the first item that you have, founders need to appear like they know what they're doing, isn't really the problem that you're solving.
Okay.
Is that
we
fair?
Can X that.
Well, so the reason we're going to go through it this way, but critically, is that just like a lot of other things, a good product isn't developed when you can add all the features you can add. It's developed when you can remove all the features that you can remove. So right now you have an axe, and we're going to make a scalpel, and it's much easier to cut something with a scalpel. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making a cut in the marketplace with your product. And to do that, we're going to identify a very narrow very sharp niche that we can enter. So by solving less problems, you have a much greater chance of being successful at solving the
Mhm.
problems that you are going after. So let's
Right.
get rid of some of the things that seem a little external. So it sounds to me like, and I 100% agree. Just like I said, being a founder, working with a lot of founders, especially at the super early stage, let's say from 0 to a couple of million in revenue, super early stage, um, you're depressed, you're anxious, you're broke. If you're comparing yourself with your cohort, with people you went to school with, or uh, you know, children of your parents' friends that your parents keep telling you about, or whatever metric you want to compare yourself to, you are going to be behind those people.
Mhm.
You're going to be behind people with corporate jobs, financially, maybe even as far as family and everything like that. So it's a very difficult job being a super early stage founder. If you're young, if you're older, it's really the same. You have very similar issues as well. So I completely agree for the need of this. But like I said, in order to deploy successfully, let's narrow the scope a little bit. So it doesn't seem to be like appearing to know what you're doing is really part of the initial problem you're solving. It might be in your roadmap later
Mhm.
on, but that's not the product you're launching with. So let's get rid of that.
Okay.
The founders
And
are under public scrutiny. Oh, go ahead. So go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say for those that are watching, this is what you want to do. You want to list out like all of the problems in this section, and then like Mike is doing with me, you cut and you chop.
That's right. That's exactly right. So first, you have think of it as sculpting. You have a big chunk of marble, and that's what you're doing by putting everything in. And now you're chiseling stuff away until you have a nice, beautiful statue. So the more you put down, the better, because it gives you the universe that your company exists in. But it needs to be focused. So as a tool, it's really hard to do that ourselves as founders. And I recommend talking to somebody maybe a friend, and having a very critical conversation, very blunt conversation, very intellectually honest conversation, like the one we're having now, saying, I think this fits here, I think this doesn't, that kind of stuff. So the way Miriam did it, by listing everything that she thought of, is exactly the right way to go about it. And this is how great go-to-market strategies are developed. So let's go to the next one. Founders are under public scrutiny. So it sounds like by that one, you mean there's consequences to showing mental weakness. Would that be fair?
That and it's just okay. So take Twitter for example. I recently have gotten active on there, and every single tweet and is out there. You don't know who sees it, why they're following you. Like sometimes an investor will follow me and I'm like, what the heck? Why are they following me? Like, what are they thinking? Like, oh, you know, I've got so many tweets in my drafts. I'm like, I don't want to, I don't know, like, I don't know if I want to tweet this or not. What are people going to think? You could get canceled like that.
Mm-hmm.
I almost got canceled on Reddit for talking about
Cool.
mental health.
Yeah.
And not being a mental health professional. They came for me.
So I'll put it this way. Yes, Reddit can be a bad place. It's very funny. I hope I don't get canceled for saying this, sharing a personal story of mine. So one of the YouTube videos that I'm in was I was in a segment on the Discovery Channel, and I put that on my YouTube channel. This is like 3 or 4 years ago. The whole segment, and it was about the inventions that I was doing and all the various things. My startup. So anyway, I put the video up, and we're getting hundreds and hundreds of comments on YouTube, and you can see the video now. Anyway, and so maybe a couple of hundred comments in, somebody starts comparing me to Hitler, just because that's the way that YouTube works. And so anyway, and then more and more Hitler comments, and I'm like, my startup has absolutely nothing to do with anything even remotely related to that. But anyway, but it devolves. And so we're having this discussion in the office, like, should we stop the comments? Because this is what the hell is this about? But no, we decided to not stop, and that faded away. And actually, a few people that put their comments up, they got enough slack, crap from other people, and they took their comments down. Anyway, it corrected itself. But the internet can be a very ugly place.
Wild out there.
I have another video on Facebook where it's like something like 60 million views or whatever, and the comments there are just horrific. But anyway,
yeah,
I'll say it like this. I think this actually took me personally as a growth thing for myself, as I have evolved over time as a founder, as I have matured, to be less cognizant about what I say. I'm just more confident in myself now. So the way I look at it, you can be middle of the road and you can have 100 people like you. 100 people out of 1,000 like you. And then, but you can be yourself, and maybe one person out of 1,000 will like you. And the way I look at it is, if you have, or rather 1,000, one person out of 1,000 love you because you represent them and you say the things that they would say, become more populist in a way. And I think that is really the way to build a personality. I don't want to use the term cult of personality, but a personality-led company. So if you are the brand, if you are the chief asset of the organization, I personally like the idea of being yourself, whether that's controversial or accepted, but it's you, it's genuine, and people gravitate to that. And I would much rather have 1 out of 1,000 people love me and back me and support me and tell your friends about me than 100 people say, oh yeah, he's okay, he's like everyone else.
Right.
So anyway, that's my take on it. Now, obviously, if you have a really shitty personality, people are just going to hate you. But I don't think you're in that situation. So if you have a personality that can attract a good following, I would let it shine. And you don't know that until you actually go. So,
well, yeah, but I've heard as well, like, there's value in being a little bit controversial. Like, if you don't stand for you don't stand for anything, you stand for nothing, or some quote like that. But then when you think about long term, like, if you are the asset to the brand and the product, then how are you ever going to sell it? How are you going to get out of there and work on the next big thing you want to do? So it's like, for me, I want to definitely pursue investment for this one. And so it's got to stand on its own without moi.
So this would be aligned. Well, it stands on its own, but you're still an asset, right? I mean,
yes.
If when Ryan Reynolds buys a mobile services company, Mint Mobile, which he recently did, he bought some shares in it. He became the main pitchman and the personality behind it. He's the reason that it's growing the way it is. And before that, he had I think it was a whiskey brand that he did the same thing with. So and I mean, I'm using Ryan Reynolds because he's a popular example, but there's actually plenty of personality-led organizations which are very venture fundable. So I wouldn't say that it's a bug in a company's formation, in a company's go-to-market strategy, that it's led by a charismatic person. I would say it's a feature. And different companies work in different ways. Some companies don't have a public head that is the rock star, but some companies like Tesla, they do. And that's really, it's really kind of, the way I would look at it is that there are millions of successful companies on this planet, and they're all different. They're all run differently. They all have different cultures. They all have different products. They all have different teams, but they're all successful. So when anybody goes up to you and says there's one right way to do it, like if you take a business school class and they say this is the right way to do this, they're wrong. And statistically, there are millions of companies that have not done it that way and have been successful. So your path to success is your own. It's unique. It's something that takes discovery. So yeah, it could go wrong if you show your personality, but it could be the thing that you need. It's about discovery. It's about figuring out for yourself.
All right. I'm going to publish all my Twitter drafts.
Get rid of all the bad references if you have any in there. I'm actually happy I'm not on Twitter. I would have gotten in trouble with my musings in the past. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Okay, back to my canvas.
Let's do it.
So founders are under public scrutiny.
So I don't know if it's a bug or a feature. So I don't know if it's a problem. That's kind of where I was going with this. So is it bad that your personality is the figurehead of the company? I mean, look at influencers everywhere, yourself included. You are an influencer.
I think when you ask that question like that, no, I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. If you're mentally well, it's okay to be under public scrutiny because everything that you do is in alignment with yourself and coming from a good place. It's just that we are under public scrutiny and we're all just not in a really good place. So it's like, okay, and it just gets worse and worse.
So maybe the problem isn't that you're under public scrutiny. Maybe the challenge is how you react to that public scrutiny. So there have been plenty of very influential people who have had mental health issues that have not lost their influence because of it. There are thought leaders that are actively battling their mental health issues. If anything, it kind of brings them closer to their communities.
Yes.
But there have been others that have, killed themselves because they couldn't handle the pressure. I was actually just recently watching a documentary about Kurt Cobain, who is an example of this. Yeah, I don't think it's the scrutiny that's the problem. I actually think scrutiny is a feature for a lot of companies, not a bug. It's a feature for a lot of leaders. However, how you react to it is definitely something that founders should be more aware of. And I think it really starts with saying, look, there's others like you. There are other people. This is really hard. This is a real shit job, starting a startup. And there's kind of a support network there. And it really does start with that. And I think that's the cornerstone of a lot of mental health approaches as well. Just saying, listen, you're not alone. There's other people. This is an experience that happens to a lot of folks. But anyway, my personal opinion is that the public scrutiny isn't the problem. The problem is that we vilify mental health. The problem is that it's such a taboo topic. The problem is how you react to it. And frankly, we might be relatively progressive talking about gender or race or other topics, but we're not progressive talking about mental health. Mental health is still a very dirty topic to a lot of folks. And that's an underlying social issue. And I think what you're working on is part of the way to change that, part of the way to bring mental health, which is very common. Mental health issues are very common, not only across founders, across the population at large, but kind of bring that into the conversation and stop vilifying those people. So I agree completely with the mission of it. And I think this is a good way to go about it. But again, I don't think it's the scrutiny. I think it's the reaction. Yeah.
So we can X this one.
Well, or change it to up to you. We're just having a discussion about each one of these items.
Okay. Okay. Well, founders are under public scrutiny. The problem is or something like talking about mental health is taboo.
About mental health is taboo. Well, I think that's a fair statement.
Okay. Founders are under a lot of pressure.
I agree.
I mean, I'll tell you what, though, QUOKA is not really solving that. It's like that pressure is going to be there regardless.
Perfect.
So we can take that out.
It's a problem. It's not your problem, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't think there's any way to not be under a lot of pressure when you're a leader trying to solve problems. Okay. Founders need to be happy, healthy, and well. If they are not, it causes further anxiety.
Okay. Founders need to be happy, healthy, and well. Okay. So here you're saying that founders need to focus on mental health.
Yeah. I was having this conversation with a ecosystem builder in New Mexico, and he talked about this concept that I've adopted called startup number one, which is like you, right? An entrepreneur, they have many startups, like series of successes, right? But startup number one, you, your family, your inner circle, making sure that that startup is good and solid, like is core and important to be successful there. So you have that foundation, and then building from there.
Well, I mean, not everybody has a foundation like that in their life, though.
Exactly.
So I don't know, by saying you need that foundation in order to be successful, I think you're excluding a lot of excellent people. And I think you're making people feel unworthy if they don't have a foundation like that. So I wouldn't, I get what the guy is saying. And I think there's definitely a lot of strength to that. But one of the things that I've discovered just going through life is when you talk to rich people, and I talk about this in my book, just different mentalities and stuff. When you talk to rich people, and I'm using that as an example of rich, just in the periphery to what we're talking about, but to illustrate my point. But when you talk to rich people, they never really think money is a problem, right? So when you talk to somebody wealthy who has true wealth, and they say, "Well, why don't you just buy that thing for $1,000? You know, why don't you just hire a developer to build that? Why don't you just do that? Why don't you do this?" And you say, "Well, I don't have $1,000." And then the guy's like, "Everybody has $1,000. Come on, it's $1,000. That's not a real problem. If you can't afford $1,000, that means you don't care about your product or your company." Now, that's a challenge, right? People don't have $1,000 sometimes. People don't have a social support net. People don't have families that would support them. People don't have to not worry about paying their rent. I mean, the high tech startup world that comes out of California, San Francisco or Cambridge, Massachusetts, a lot of those people that start those high tech companies, they have that social support. They don't need to pay the rent. They don't need to work. They don't need to buy cheeseburgers. They got money for that, so they can stick around and do whatever they want. But a lot of people don't have that. And by saying you need that psychological support, that financial support in order to be successful, I think it's actually kind of misleading because a lot of people don't have that and they're still extremely successful. And I would actually want to move away from that as a point of conversation in the startup world, saying that there are prerequisites to being a successful founder, because I don't think that's the case. And the data doesn't support that. And if anything, it makes people who don't have those prerequisites feel unworthy, feel like they're on the periphery of the startup world. And I just don't think that's a healthy way to go about it. So I get what the guy is saying, basically, but I don't know if I completely agree with him.
Yeah. I think if it doesn't have to necessarily be outside of you, but I would, and I agree, that's not the reality of the world today. You can be very successful without being mentally well. And you can create things that are not the best for humanity as well. And that happens a lot of the times, and be very successful doing that. But this is why I'm starting with QUOKA, because there's a lot of things I want to accomplish and build and create over the journey of my life. And I think that there are a lot of founders out there that are working on solving really big problems that will affect us globally. But even if they don't have any support system externally, within themselves, being healthy there and well there mentally, or at least able to deal with it, having the tools, understanding and feeling like it's normal to go through ups and downs. I don't think that either the solutions that come out of the creating process or are going to be as good as they can be, or they'll fail, or it'll take them longer, or they'll make choices that are not good for them, like taking money from someone that's going to lead them down a path they don't want. to go down, take them away from their why, or worse, we see these high suicide rates with entrepreneurs.
I love
But
that. So build up your
yeah,
strength, your internal strength.
yeah.
Founders need to
Startup number one
be
is you.
comfortable with being founders and everything that comes with it, and how they're different, and that different isn't bad. And I completely agree with that message. Different is not bad. And if you listen to the startup ecosystem influencers, like I said, they're mostly
Mhm.
investors. They'll say that this is the right way to do it. If you deviate from that, you're bad. And that's not true. And it's absolutely dangerous. So different isn't bad. And founders need to understand that. Just because their personality, their background is different, that's perfectly fine. I talk to a lot of women founders who think it's bad that they're a woman and they want to bring in a male co-founder because they think it'll help them raise money, things like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
which is really common. I have people approach me all the time and I say, no, do it. This is you. If anybody won't invest in you because you're a woman, fuck them. You don't want to get investment from them anyway. And by the way, less than 10% of venture capital goes to women founders. So it's a legitimate concern.
Totally.
I have
I've been
minority
there.
founders. Yes, we honestly we all have. So minority founders as well. Less than 2% of venture capital goes to Black or Latino founders. Less than 2%. And this is today. This is 2021. This isn't like 1950 or anything. This is now. But that's
Right.
the state of the industry. And I talk about this extensively in my book, right? And it's a real problem. But what happens is if you're on the outside of that group, if you're outside of the white males that get pretty much all of the venture capital funding, you think you're not worthy. You think your idea isn't good enough. And that's dangerous. And that can lead to mental health issues, but it also leads to great ideas dying,
Yeah.
great startups, great inventions going away because the founder doesn't think, listen, I should be the founder because nobody's going to fund me. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly,
Yeah.
I blame the VC for this, and I've been in trouble with the VC for talking about this publicly, like I'm doing now. I talk about this a lot. Every platform I have, I try to mention something about how not representative that industry is in today's day and age. I mean, if Google hired less than 2% Black or Latino employees, we'd be boycotting Google. There'd be no question about it. Google would be in the news all day, would be yelling and screaming at them, saying, "How could you do this?" But that is the state of the venture capital industry. And those are the guys that are the influencers. Those are the people that are on the panels, that are writing the books, that are writing all the literature, and they're teaching people how to be the thing that they want them to be in order to get their money. And that's a dangerous way to go about it. Anyway, so I completely agree with that statement that you have in there as far as fixing the problem, having founders be comfortable with who they are, and building up their internal resources to be able to survive and to be able to thrive with the uniqueness that they have rather than changing themselves to fit the mold that's laid out for them.
Yeah. Yay. Okay, cool. In QUOKA right now, we're running our first 21-day challenge. It's called the Kick-Ass Challenge. So every day the members are prompted to think of reasons why they kick ass.
Nice.
It's very simple.
I love it.
Straightforward. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna leave that one in there.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I don't. Yeah. That's fine. I think it's fine.
Okay.
I think that's a key thing.
Now, this is a big problem. I feel like founders are busy, right? We have mentors, advisors, all communities, Slack channels, Discords, etc. But we are busy, and all of those available tools require time and mental commitment to gain knowledge, to give and get, that's a problem.
Founders are busy. So it sounds like there's two different things that your platform does. So one is knowledge sharing, and the other one is mental health. Is that
Well,
fair?
I would say that the knowledge sharing and giving and getting, those capabilities are the way that we allow you to do it in an easy, low mental health, quick way results in your mental health being better. And yes, we also supplement, with the meditation, the comp, and the stuff like that, but you can get that kind of stuff anywhere. So it's not really like a unique differentiator of QUOKA. It's just that it's like a Slack channel where you can drop in and drop out at any time, and no one thinks that you're whack because you haven't been there for weeks. You never have to start off a statement with, "So sorry, I haven't gotten back to you," or "It's been a really busy," having to explain ourselves over and over again because life happens, or feeling like you need to maintain. I'm not saying this replaces those relationships, which are still important, obviously, but it's just a little bit easier of an entry, and you never feel stupid. Like, some people won't ask certain questions in Slack or in public forums or even in private forums, because then you're showing weakness, that you need something. A lot of founders. Go ahead.
So I just want to kind of ground it a little bit. When you talk about sharing knowledge, it's like, do you have an accountant that works with startups that's affordable? Is that the kind of knowledge that you're talking about?
Yes. For example, yesterday we had a question about, I need a registered agent to incorporate in Delaware. It was like everybody was firing off resources and links and such. And by a couple hours, they had gotten the answer that they needed and were good to go.
Sure. So yes, I get what you're saying. It just seems like there's a completely different thing than a focus on mental health. So sharing resources like that will probably attract people who don't care about their mental health. They just need an accountant or a registered agent or whatever to this group, which would dilute the group. That would be my opinion about that. So there's very tactical things, and then there's strategic things. So strategic things is long-term focus on health, mental health in this case. It seems like a very different thing than sharing resources. Now, I think one of these can be in the development path. So as in later on in a year or two, you will introduce a forum where people can share resources and things like that. But in the meantime, I think pretty much every accelerator incubator already has a group like this. And everybody can join them. So as far as finding registered agents that work with startups, it really is not a problem for people who have been in the startup ecosystem for a little bit. So anyway, all I'm saying is I think you should choose one. Either focus on support and development for mental health, or resources, tactical resources for startups, introductions, things like that. Now, as far as the commitment you make to the group, I also don't know. When you were talking about that, it actually seems like you probably should make a commitment, because I think people would be less open to sharing if the other people are not committed to confidentiality, for one, and also just developing relationships. So I think the few exercises that I've participated in that have focused on support groups for early stage startup CEOs, if they've always required some sort of a commitment. I will spend X amount of hours. I will go to X amount of meetings, things like that. So there's a sense of camaraderie, a sense of understanding, and definitely confidentiality. Because like you said, you don't want to go into a group saying, "I'm depressed, I have anxiety," and then having, somebody in that group tell people. And one of the ways you trust them is, having confidentiality in place, but it's also just developing a personal relationship. And I think those relationships need to happen for people to be honest with each other. I don't think it's reasonable for people to expect to join a group of strangers and share all their secrets, all the taboo things that are happening to them.
Mm-hmm. So I agree in a lot of ways. It's like, that's what's expected. This whole, give, which I'm a fan. I always have believed in giving, even before I became a founder, and then I was exposed to this culture. But I think it's not a reasonable expectation to ask people who are not mentally well to be able to give consistently. We've got to lower our standards a little bit, bring ourselves up to a new mental health standard, put in place the resources that people need in the systems, and then ask for a commitment. It's kind of like an all hands on deck thing.
That's fair. But you're talking about mental health, not resource sharing, not introductions to lawyers and stuff. Which is more important to you, the resources or the mental health element of what you do?
Well, getting access to resources and help and support of that helps increase your mental health.
So getting an introduction to a registered agent helps increase your mental health?
If you're stressed out about that problem and you can't move, you feel like you can't do anything in your startup because you haven't figured that part out yet, and that's just like overplaying in your mind, it causes you anxiety. Okay. It may not be the root of your mental health problem, but until you, okay, so that's what you need here. This is what you need. And then, you know, the next problem comes up. Okay, so that's what you need. And then eventually people understand, oh, I need therapy. I need breathing. I need to hug my mom. Like, you know, but there's all of these fake problems that we put in our in place, you know, so you have to get people there. And because it's taboo to talk about it, you can't get people there. You're like, oh, I'm not mentally, I don't need any mental health help. I'm perfect. Fine. 10.
Okay, I see what you're saying. And I definitely think if you have a lot of anxiety over something tactical like that, that can alleviate that anxiety. My opinion is that, you know, if you're going to have a platform in the beginning, it should focus on the underlying issues. And if somebody needs an intro to someone, that can be handled off of the platform. That would be what I would recommend personally. I just don't think mixing these two things makes sense in the very beginning. I think you got to be super focused. So your messaging, your approach, your reach out to founders should be, this is a mental health platform for early stage startup founders, rather than mental health plus introductions to lawyers. I just think from a messaging perspective, it's more difficult to explain that. But I also think it's tertiary. I don't think that tactical stuff is really as important as being in the right headspace. But yes, if somebody is part of this group and it's causing them anxiety, then the other founders there are obviously free to recommend people, or you can recommend a resource. There's plenty of them that you can use. You know, organizations that have a bunch of service providers that work with startups. The Venture Cafe is one, you know, just to give you an example, but there's dozens of others that are specifically tailored for this. They don't care about mental health. They're tailored about fixing tactical problems like introductions to service providers, networking with other founders, things like that. So my take is that you should cut one of these things out. Either the mental health should leave or the tactical intro stuff should leave.
Okay, cool. Check. Got it. I'm not going to make a decision right now. I'm going to do some data analysis. I know what my gut is telling me, but I want to check the data.
Well, one of the things that I love to tell people, I might sound like I'm an expert in all this type of stuff, and I have that persona about me. But the fact is, if you ask 5 different experts, you're going to get 7 different opinions. So the one that's important is yours. So the only expert here in this room is you. I'm just a bouncing board. So nothing I say is accurate, or nothing is more accurate than what you're doing, because this is your company. You're the one who stays awake at night worrying about it. So experts are not really experts because you're the expert. So just something to keep in mind. And absolutely, it's your decision. And You're the only one in a position to make it and to know what's right for your company.
Thank you. Yeah, and we are at the end. We're at the top of the hour here, so we didn't get through the whole lean canvas. People hopefully got a start to it. How can they get in touch with you if they have more questions about putting together their lean canvas?
Yeah, if people want some stuff, reach out. I just have a website, burtov.com. That's my last name, burtov.com. And you can contact me through the contact form.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on LinkedIn, if you want to ping me as well. And Miriam, I really enjoyed our time together. I love what you do. I think it's critically important. And I think focus on mental health is something that's amazingly lacking from a lot of the other support structures designed for entrepreneurs. There's plenty of networking, there's plenty of resource sharing, but mental health, there's such a lack of that, such a lack of awareness that it's even an issue with the startups, with startup founders. So I wish you all the best. And if you ever want to get together and go for the rest of the canvas, or bounce other ideas, as you can tell, each section was going to take a long time. And this is a particularly short session. I mean, an hour for one session. We actually did it kind of quickly, which is interesting. But I'm always happy to join you again.
Thank you. Let's do that. Okay, I will reach out to you in email.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Enjoy the Miami heat out there, and I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Good luck.